All right, welcome back. We've got some breaking news to get to shortly. But for now, with all eyes focused on Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there's concern that the domestic agenda is being pushed to the back burner, with critical issues like police reform, voting rights, and Build Back Better stuck in limbo. So how can Dems address the crisis abroad and take care of business here at home? And the Republicans are not off the hook either. Joining me now, Representative Pramila Jayapal. She's chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Congresswoman, I'm so happy to have you with us this morning. Thank you for being here. Look, Ukraine is sucking up all the oxygen in the room right now. Understandably, what happens there will cast a wide net of influence across the globe. So I understand that makes sense. But there is still important policy issues facing people here at home. Chief among them, I'd say, is voting rights, which is crucially important in a midterm year. We're seeing this play out in real time in Texas, which just had its primary this week. President Biden is meeting with the Labor Secretary and labor leaders today. A lot happening here domestically. So I think what people are concerned about is, can the Democratic majority walk and chew gum at the same time? Your thoughts?
Tiffany, first of all, it's great to see you as always. Look, I think that is exactly what we have to do. We can't take our eyes off of any of the things that we need to get done. And I think you heard President Biden walking this line during the State of the Union. About a third of the speech was about Ukraine, which is a massive issue for us in the United States. Obviously, a war on the European continent affects everybody, and it affects us in terms of, the basics of how we operate every day, including, of course, gas prices. But I will just say that there is a connection between what we are trying to do domestically and what we are trying to do internationally. Let me give you 3 ways that that's the case. First of all, democracy. We are both in the European Union and, with the war on Ukraine, the aggression of Russia on Ukraine, and here in the United States, we are trying to show that democracy works. We cannot allow suppression of votes domestically, nor can we allow dictators in Europe or anywhere in the world to take over. So that is a real connection. Secondly, if we ever want to be truly free of the ability of dictators to blackmail us over oil and gas, we should be investing right here at home in renewable energy technologies. We should be weaning ourselves of fossil fuels so that this situation that we're in does not happen again in terms of, feeling like we can't stop Russian oil and gas imports because it's going to drive up prices here at home. By the way, no matter what we do, prices of gas are going to go up. So any Republicans who try to say that it's drill, baby, drill, and that solves the problem, it's wrong. That is not the case. We are going to see gas prices rise, but it is in service to trying to quell a dictator. And finally, if we want democracy to work, Tiffany, then we've also got to show that we don't have these massive inequalities of wealth and income, which is why we need to lower the cost of childcare, lower the cost of housing, lower the cost of prescription drugs, so that we can show people that it actually matters to have a democratic country, a country that invests in everybody. So that's how I see these 2 things going hand in hand together, and it's why we're not going to stop working on the domestic agenda.
Yeah, and there are some through lines here. I look at what's happening in Ukraine, and I see, democracy can be a fragile thing, and it feels a bit fragile in America right now. We're seeing, the Republican Party bleeded by 1,000 cuts with rampant voter suppression. The Florida Republican-controlled state legislature just advanced a bill that was pushed by the Republican mayor, Ron DeSantis, Florida man, who would create a police force dedicated to pursuing election crimes. This is not a thing. So it's not lost on me that we're in a midterm election year. Russia has previously tried to attack our democracy by sowing discord here in the United States, hacking into some of our democratic systems. What's concerning, though, to me, Congresswoman, which I want your opinion on, there have been Republican voices who are espousing Russian talking points, who are regurgitating some of the same things Vladimir Putin said. We've seen that on Fox News from folks like Tucker Carlson, and we've even heard it from some elected members of Congress. How will you navigate that as we're watching democracy in peril really all across the globe?
Well, we really have to call it out, and we can't forget that under Donald Trump, if people think that elections don't have consequences and their votes don't matter, imagine, Tiffany, what it would be like right now if Donald Trump were in power. This is the same man, when he was president, who actually withheld congressionally approved aid to President Zelensky because he wanted President Zelensky to launch an investigation of Joe Biden's son's company, Burisma. And so I think we have to understand this is a president who has continued to prop up Vladimir Putin as a dictator. And there are some in his party that continue to do that. Here at home, we have Republicans who are essentially, as you said, espousing the same tactics as Vladimir Putin in his own country, acting like a dictator and suppressing the power of the vote. So on voting rights, which I know is so important to you and I, the thing we have to do in the absence of federal legislation, we're going to continue to push, but unless we reform or eliminate the filibuster, and we need 50 votes to do that, and we don't have that in the Senate, we're going to have to focus on the on-the-ground work. Communities across the country, this is your opportunity to make sure we're training up poll watchers, we're out there working early on voter registration, on voter turnout. We have to do a jujitsu move here, and we have to show people that there is nothing that they can do to suppress our votes. We're just going to turn out even bigger, even more assured of our vote, and do everything we can to protect it.
Well, I'm coming up against the hard break here, but I'll tell you, for those of us who, journalists who work in media, it's very challenging because right now the echo chambers are laser focused on Ukraine, which means a lot of other things get overlooked. Police brutality is still very much an issue. There are still viral video clips of people getting abused. Voter suppression, as we've talked about, is still very much an issue. So I think what the American people want to know, especially as it's a midterm year and the Democrats go out there and ask for another chance to maintain control of the legislative branch, is what can Congress get done? Voter legislation has died. Police reform has died. And so when you ask the American people to trust you again, what is it that you're offering?
Yes, very good point. We are about to unveil a slate of executive actions, the Congressional Progressive Caucus will, that address all of these different areas. I want to be clear, it's not going to be as good as legislation, but we have to cancel student debt. We have to there are some things we can do around criminal justice from an executive perspective. The Department of Justice can do them. We need to make sure we're bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We can do that through march-in rights. We need to take on climate change. These are executive actions that can happen with this president. But in addition, I have not given up on passing a bill that takes on climate change, that addresses childcare, that cuts that makes the tax system more fair and that cuts the cost of prescription drugs. I believe that something like that is possible. We're going to continue to push on it. But at the end of the day, Tiffany, just really quickly, this is what we have to remember. If it were easy, it would have been done. And there is nobody in the history of civil rights in the world that stopped when we came up against barriers. So we need bigger majorities in the House and the Senate if we're really going to be able to deliver on some of the things we need to deliver on.
Yeah, elections have consequences, just like you said. Thanks so much, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. I've got some breaking news I got to get to, but thanks for being here.